You are lying in bed. The room is completely dark. The shadows stretch across the ceiling as you finally drift toward sleep. Then, you hear it. Have you ever felt that sudden surge of pure rage? That high-pitched whine hovers right by your ear. You slap your own face. You miss the target. You wish every single one of these blood-sucking pests would just vanish from the earth tomorrow. You are not alone in this fantasy. Humans have spent billions of dollars and centuries of effort trying to eradicate them. Governments have drained swamps and engineered complex genetic traps, but this midnight annoyance is not a simple glitch in nature. For over 226 million years, this fragile creature has been a foundational pillar of global ecology. What you view as a worthless nuisance is actually a master weaver of the natural world. Have you ever wondered what would truly happen if you got your wish? To understand the immense weight of their existence, you must leave your bedroom. You must travel back to the late Triassic period. The ancient Earth is brutally hot. The dense air is thick with suffocating humidity. Dinosaurs are just beginning their long, violent reign over the continents. Yet, tiny, fragile insects are already mastering the delicate art of survival. They adapt rapidly over millions of years of fierce competition. They develop a specialized biological needle called a proboscis. This terrifying little tool is not designed out of malice. It is engineered from a desperate, uncompromising need for protein. The females of this species do not actually want to drink blood. They simply have to do it. Without the rich, complex nutrients found in the veins of other animals, their eggs will fail to develop. How did this microscopic needle alter the entire course of life on our planet? Their true power does not actually lie in the bite itself. It lies hidden in the water. Look closely at a stagnant pool deep in the wild forest. It looks completely lifeless. It appears terribly still. But just beneath the murky surface, a brutal and vital biological engine is turning. The females lay hundreds of eggs on the dark water. Within a few days, thousands of tiny larvae hatch into the suffocating depths. They are ravenous. They are absolutely relentless. They begin to aggressively filter the surrounding water using microscopic brushes attached to their mouths. Why is this microscopic feeding frenzy so incredibly crucial for the survival of the forest? As they eat, they consume massive amounts of decaying leaves, algae, and floating microorganisms. They take useless, rotting organic detritus and miraculously convert it into pure, concentrated biological energy. They are the great, unsung recyclers of the natural world. If you somehow remove them from the equation, the water stagnates and dies completely. The delicate nutrient cycle shatters. The vital energy of the forest remains forever locked in, dead, rotting matter. Now, take this microscopic aquatic process and multiply it to a terrifying planetary scale. Imagine the harsh, unforgiving landscape of the Arctic tundra in early summer. The endless, crushing winter ice finally begins to melt under the sun. Shallow, freezing pools of water form across thousands of miles of barren earth. This desolate, haunting wasteland is exactly where the true scale of their ecological power is unleashed. In these temporary, freezing pools, billions upon billions of ravenous larvae hatch simultaneously. They form incredibly dense, writhing clouds that darken the shallow water. They violently scrub the pools clean, locking immense amounts of raw energy into their tiny, fragile bodies. When they finally transform and emerge as winged adults, they rise from the freezing tundra in staggering, incomprehensible numbers. The massive swarms are so incredibly thick, they physically block out the light of the sun. These dark, humming clouds sweeping across the endless ice are not a biological plague. They are a massive, flying buffet of life-saving protein. Who exactly is waiting in the freezing cold to feast on this impossible bounty? Look up at the sprawling, gray sky. Every single year, millions of desperate birds travel thousands of miles from the southern hemisphere just to reach the Arctic. They arrive completely exhausted at the exact moment this massive insect hatch occurs. Ecologists and wildlife biologists have spent decades silently observing this brutal, frozen environment. Extensive field studies tracking the specific diets of these migratory birds reveal a startling, undeniable biological dependency. The exhausted birds gorge themselves constantly on the dense, buzzing clouds of flying insects. They desperately need this massive, sudden influx of rich calories to survive. They use this critical energy to feed their highly vulnerable chicks hiding in fragile nests on the freezing ground. If you somehow press a magic button and wipe out every single one of these winged insects tomorrow, you instantly erase thousands of tons of living biomass from the wild tundra. What happens to the desperate birds when their only food vanishes into thin air? The immediate answer is a catastrophic, unstoppable ecological collapse. Without this critical, abundant food source, the fragile chicks starve to death in their shallow nests. The frantic adult birds simply cannot find enough alternative wild prey to sustain their starving families. The global populations of beautiful shorebirds, swallows, and warblers crash dramatically and violently. This is not just a localized tragedy confined to the melting ice of the north. It is a terrifying, rapidly spreading biological shockwave. Those exact same birds are supposed to migrate back south when the dark winter finally returns. They are supposed to carry vital nutrients across entire oceans. They act as essential, natural pest control for wild forests and human farmlands on entirely different continents. Without the hungry birds returning to the south, deeply destructive insect populations in temperate zones explode without any natural predators. Beautiful, ancient forests suffer from massive, devastating defoliation. Vital crop yields plummet drastically across the globe. The sudden disappearance of one tiny, hated bloodsucker in the freezing north rapidly starves a bird that protects a fragile forest thousands of miles away. How can one seemingly insignificant creature hold so many different ecosystems together? But the story of their survival is far more complex than just serving as bird food. When the tiny insect finally lands on the tough skin of a wild animal, you might think it is a simple, primitive bite. It is absolutely not. It is a highly complex, microscopic surgical procedure honed over eons of violent evolution. The terrifying mouthpart is not just a single, simple hollow tube. It is a sophisticated biological sheath hiding 6 distinct, razor-sharp microscopic blades. 2 of these incredible blades possess tiny, jagged teeth specifically designed to saw through the tough outer layer of animal hide. You never actually feel the violent cut happening. Why do wild animals and humans remain completely oblivious to this invasive surgery? 2 other microscopic tools act as medical retractors, forcefully holding the torn tissue apart. A 5th, incredibly sensitive needle blindly probes the bleeding flesh, searching frantically for a hidden blood vessel. When it finally strikes a rich vein, the final needle quickly pumps a highly specialized, numbing chemical directly into the open wound. This brilliant chemical stops the host's blood from naturally clotting. It completely numbs the surrounding nervous system. It brilliantly keeps the warm liquid flowing freely into the starving insect. This terrifying, beautiful bioengineering was absolutely not designed to annoy modern humans in their homes. It was forged in the deeply hostile, ancient jungles of the prehistoric world. It allowed these tiny, vulnerable creatures to steal life from thick-skinned, aggressive beasts without being instantly crushed to death. Their hidden ecological role goes far beyond feeding predators and performing microscopic surgery. Step far away from the frozen northern tundra and carefully enter the dense, deeply humid bogs of North America. Hidden deeply within these dark wetlands lies a tiny, incredibly unassuming green flower known as the blunt-leaved orchid. It relies entirely on a very specific, highly unusual pollinator to survive in the shadows. You normally think of buzzing bees and brightly colored butterflies when you hear the word pollination, but the busy bees completely ignore this little, strange green flower. Instead, the clever orchid deliberately emits a highly specific, strange, and musky scent. It perfectly, chemically mimics the subtle body odor of a living, breathing, warm-blooded mammal. It deliberately, evolutionarily attracts the very blood-sucking creature you deeply despise. As the thirsty insect lands softly on the delicate flower to drink its sugary nectar, sticky packets of pollen attach directly to its large eyes. The insect eventually flies away into the dark, dense ibogue. It blindly carries the vital genetic material to the next waiting flower, hidden in the damp moss. If you totally erase the hated pest from the world, you permanently erase the beautiful orchid right along with it. In their desperate, endless quest for survival, these insects also became massive, unwitting couriers of life and death. They are undeniably the greatest movers of microscopic, wild life on the entire planet. When they quietly drink the warm blood of a wild animal, They often ingest ancient viruses and microscopic parasites hidden deeply within the host. These invisible, terrifying hitchhikers do not digest in the tiny insect's stomach. Instead, they survive. They multiply rapidly. They migrate slowly to the insect's salivary glands, waiting patiently for the next surgical strike. When the insect injects its numbing chemical into a brand new host, the waiting parasites flood into the fresh bloodstream. The fragile insect has absolutely no idea it is delivering a highly lethal, microscopic payload. It is simply, desperately trying to feed its unhatched young. Yet, this incredibly blind, biological delivery system has deeply shaped the evolution of almost every terrestrial vertebrate on Earth. Whole species of wild animals have been violently forced to migrate across continents. They have altered their ancient mating seasons. They have developed incredibly thick fur and learned complex mud-bathing habits just to escape the swarms. This tiny, unbelievably fragile insect has aggressively dictated the movements of massive, powerful herds across the globe for millions of years. But here is the dark, paradoxical twist about wild nature that you never saw coming. If you somehow successfully and completely eradicate this blood-feeding family from the earth, you do not just lose a few bird species and some rare bog orchids. You instantly create a massive, terrifying ecological vacuum. Wild nature absolutely abhors a biological vacuum. The vast space they leave behind would not stay completely empty for very long. The millions of bodies of wild water would deeply rot without the hungry larvae constantly filtering them, creating a highly toxic, dead environment. And the newly vacant throne of the apex, flying blood feeder would immediately be claimed by something entirely different. What exactly happens when a brand new nightmare rapidly takes the empty throne? Biting midges, deeply brutal sandflies, and highly parasitic ticks would immediately undergo a terrifying, unstoppable population explosion. These creeping creatures are far harder to control than the flying ones you already know. They quietly carry wild pathogens and ancient diseases that are even more painful, deeply unpredictable, and difficult to cure. By violently removing the devil you know so well, you accidentally unleash a chaotic, incredibly violent scramble for ecological dominance. You kick wide open the ancient door for deeply terrifying parasites that have patiently waited millions of years in the dark shadows for their turn to rule. The pristine world without them might actually turn out to be far more deadly. The wildly intricate, deeply connected web of life simply does not tolerate sudden, sweeping deletions. Absolutely everything is tied to absolutely everything else in a delicate, brutal, and beautiful balance forged over hundreds of millions of years of wild evolution. The annoying midnight sound you hate is just the faint, lingering echo of an ancient, highly successful survival mechanism. It is a biological mechanism that feeds the migrating birds, pollinates the deep hidden woods, and violently keeps the darkest, most terrifying parasites at bay. It quietly sustains the very fragile planet you currently walk on. So the next time you are lying in bed, the lights are off, you hear that high-pitched whine right by your ear. Do not just feel blind, pointless anger. Feel a strange, creeping sense of awe. You are actually listening to the sound of an ancient, perfectly tuned biological engine that keeps the entire world turning. If you found this evolutionary journey fascinating, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another deep dive into the hidden truths of the animal kingdom.